Whether it's our commute to work or in the workplace itself, as public sector employees, we can feel stuck. We feel stuck with delays from the Phoenix pay system, stuck with workplace problems that take forever to resolve, stuck waiting to finally achieve a new collective agreement. So why do we always feel stuck? It's because of the FPSLRA? The FPSLRA, the Federal Public Sector Labor Relations Act. For now, let's just call it the legislation. It's the legislation that governs how we arrive at a new contract, how we navigate grievances and disputes, and who is actually considered an employee in the federal public service. And it's not just what's included in the legislation, it's also what's not included, such as whether we get paid accurately or on time. Let's take a closer look at how this legislation leaves us feeling so stuck. First, it defines who are and aren't federal government employees. The legislation's narrow definition means many casual and short-term workers are not deemed as employees at all, even though they work in the federal public sector on a regular basis, doing the same work year after year after year. This leads to a two-tier system where many workers are paid less, have fewer rights, and have less job security, despite doing comparable work to their counterparts. Make no mistake, the legislation is intentionally written that way, but we'll get to that in a bit. For those of us who are defined as employees, how does the legislation affect bargaining for a new contract? Well, it purposefully restricts what we can settle at the bargaining table. If we want to resolve issues about pensions, staffing, or systemic discrimination at the workplace during bargaining, we can't. Imagine bargaining about working conditions and not being able to resolve staffing issues, or not being able to negotiate the terms of our pension plan. Because of this, some of the key issues we face at work never get addressed in bargaining. And it's not just about what we can or can't solve at the bargaining table. It's also how long bargaining takes. The legislation puts up several roadblocks during the bargaining process. When talks are at an impasse, it can force both sides to detour into a separate process, set up through a public interest commission. Appointing members to the commission, going through a hearing process, writing a report, it all takes time and makes negotiations even longer. And the recommendations aren't even binding. It's very rare that the commission ever helps resolve impasses. Instead, it just adds more delays to the bargaining process. If there is ever a strike or a lockout, the legislation also allows people to become scabs or replacement workers. The current legislation does not prevent people from crossing the picket line. This undermines our collective power and those of us who are working together to make things better at work. And when we look at issues in the workplace, such as a manager violating the collective agreement, our resulting grievances take forever to arrive at a resolution. Changes to the legislation have meant that there are only a handful of full-time people in all of Canada who can make a decision related to grievances. To put this into perspective, there are over 100,000 PSAC members working in the public sector, and it's not uncommon for grievances to take 5 or even 10 years to resolve, with no relief from the violation in the meantime. Finally, let's not forget about our pay. Unlike other labor laws, the legislation does not include any language to make sure our pay is accurate and on time. It means there's very little legal accountability when the Phoenix pay system messes up and hits delays. The Federal Public Sector Labor Relations Act is complex and inefficient, and it wasn't a mistake that it was written this way. The federal government keeps it this way because it benefits them. In fact, this legislation is one of a kind. No other labor law or code in Canada is as unnecessarily complicated as this one. This means the issues we are facing are unique to federal government workers. Luckily, it doesn't have to be this way. The FPSLRA can change. It can change to include casual and short-term workers, so there's no unfair two-tier system, to streamline the collective bargaining process, to deal with grievances faster, to include accountability to make sure our pay is accurate and on time, and so much more. So, how do we get there? Things won't change unless we, as PSAC members, force it to change. We can use our power, take action, and pressure the federal government into changing legislation. we can create a better path ahead for us all. One where we're finally unstuck and moving in the right direction. Let's get there together.